And again now. Just this side. Okay, your chance. All together. Little softer. Just a whisper. A little louder. Nice and loud. As if we haven't done it in 16 months. Hit it, Dave. yachadu. Last time.
Hine ma tovu umanaimu shevet yachim megam yachadu.
I missed that.
So do I.
Cantor, there are people here.
And
there are people here.
And they're in harmony. Oh my God.
I told you this was a singing congregation.
Yeah.
Thank you for not making me out to be a liar. For a year, I've been telling our cantor the congregation loves to sing along, but we've been staring at webcams this entire time. And how good it is for us to be back together, dwelling with one another. We have purposefully not sang that melody online because we want to hold out for the harmony that can happen only when we're all together. And I feel like it's Kol Nidre right now for me. And it's just a delight to be here with all of you as we do this and to return to this holy place that has been our home. You know, for the last 16 months, we've been saying we are physically distant but spiritually together. And even though there's a whole slew of people watching us online right now, know that wherever you are in the world, you are with us right here in this space as we return together, to return to a holy place. When I was working at Camp Eisner in 2004 or 5, something like that, the song leader was this great guy. His name is Greg Kellner. And for him, camp was this incredibly holy space. And for 10 months of the year, he would wait for those 2 months to be present. And for him, it was his spiritual awakening to be there on the camp property. And when he walked onto camp, he just felt this place of his heart being matched with the divine. And the summer I was there, I was lucky enough to hear him teach us all a new prayer that he called the Makom HaKadosh. It's on the back side of your prayer cards. We're going to learn it now and sing it all together. But it goes, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehexiranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh. The shehexiranu is a bit of a tongue-tied word. But it's essentially thanking God for enabling us to return to this holy place. It is a locational-based Shechianu moment, I guess you would say it. So we're going to begin our service with this prayer, and we're going to conclude it as well as we return to this holy place. You'll pick it up real easily.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehexiranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehexiranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh. We thank you, God, for returning us to this holy place. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehexiranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh. We thank you, God, for returning us to this holy place. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
how wonderful and good it is for us to return to this place. And not only is this our first time back in 16 months or so, but it's also our first ever Pride Shabbat here at Anshe Emeth. And it is a joy for all of us to be able to come together in prayer from whatever walk of life we are from, to say with one loud and unequivocal voice that we are all created b'Tselem Elohim, that we are all created in the image of God, that all of us deserve love, that love is love, and love should be available for everybody. So how good it is for us to be together on this Shabbat in particular, for us to come together with voices united to say we stand for love. So take a moment now, maybe the almost last moment of silent reflection, to think about where we've been for these past months and to thank God for being able to be here together.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Ina Horn, and as president of Anshe Emeth Memorial Temple, I am so excited to welcome you to our worship service here tonight. While we have gathered online for the past year and a half, it is wonderful to physically be together again in our sacred space. Even though the people sitting in our pews here in the sanctuary are wearing masks, I can still see your smiles and some tears of joy as we start our services here tonight. So whether you're joining us on site or online, we want to make sure how much you know that we appreciate you participating in worship services today, and from learning from our guest speaker, Abby Stein. Now let us feel the warmth of Shabbat as we invite Hemi Moon to lead us in blessings and light the Shabbat candles. Shabbat Shalom.
Creator of light, source of wisdom, you know the depth of the human soul. As you fill this world with the glance of your presence, so let us fill our world with the calm wisdom that love does not ask what, but instead asks whom. May we, as we watch the two flames of memory and practice enlighten this space, remember all parts of our stories and make space for all that we are. Creator of light, source of wisdom, may your light fill every inch of our bodies, and may it exceed all forms. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
We continue with the singing of Lecha Dodi on page 20 and 21.
Lecha
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shambor b'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el ha'meyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ultiferet beli tehila la la. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu b'delcha, ki mekor haberacha merosh bikerem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila la la la. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech hir melucha, kuminzeim mitoch ha'afecha, rav lach shevet be'emek ha'becha, vehu yachamol alayich hemla. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Itna arim me'afar kumi, livshei bigdei tifartekami, al yad ben yishai ben kalachmi, korva el nafshi ge'ala. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Hit'oreri, ki ba'orech kumi ori, uri shir dameri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Vehayu limshisa shosayik verachaku, kol mevalayik yasis alayik Elohayik, kimsos chatan al kala. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi velo tikalmi, ma tishtochachi u'ma temi bach yechesu. Aniye ami v'nivneta ir al tila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Yamim u'smol tifrotzi v'et Adonai, taritzi al yad ish ben parti v'nismecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela.
Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat.
We rise in either body or spirit.
Boi v'shalom atet bala gam besimcha uvetzola toch emunei am segula boi chala Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Shabbat Shalom. We continue on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei
B'chayechon
v'yomechon u'b'chayer kol beit Yisrael bagala u'vizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yesh me'Rabba mevorach ve'olam olam me'almaya yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar v'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'yit'aleh ve'yithalal shemei de'kudesha
Brichu
le'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata
Tush bechata v'nechemata damiran v'yalma
v'imru Amen.
We rise in either body or spirit for the Baruch Hu.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai-dai da-dai, yai-dai da-dai, yai-dai da-dai da-dai, yai-dai da-dai, yai-dai da-dai, yai-dai da-dai da-dai. We turn now to the back of your trifold handout for a very special Ma'ariv Aravim blessing. As the sun sinks and the color of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. All of us are twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. All of us have many identities and loves, many genders and none. All of us are in between roles in the intersection of histories. All of us are crisscrossed paths of memory and destination,
Streaks of light swirled together. We are neither day nor night. We are both, neither, and all. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted into this twilight. We cannot always be defined. We can always say a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hayotzer et hadimdumim. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, who brings on the twilight.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah umitzvot, Tukim umishpatim, Otanu lemadata. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah umitzvot, Tukim umishpatim, Otanu lemadata. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, Beshofeinu uvkumeinu, Beshofeinu uvkumeinu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, be'avatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shema.
Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Amen.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated.
Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinatam levanecha, v'dibartam bam, v'shiftecha b'veitecha, u'lechtecha b'derech, u'b'shokbecha u'vkumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, ve'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'bisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora
Tehilot
oseh
Feleh
Nora
Tehilot
oseh Feleh
Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed
מלכותך ראו פניך, בוקע הים לפני משה מרים. זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא
Tehilot
עושה
Feleh
נורא
Tehilot
עושה
Feleh
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us with wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ananananana Adonai. Ananananana svatai tifta. Ananananana ufi yagid. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanorah El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo ve'ahava, Melech Kozer u'Moshiach u'Magei, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, mi kamocha ba'al givurot, umido melach, melech memid umekayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua, ve'ne'emanata le'achayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el
We take a moment now for Tefillat Halev, the personal and private prayer of the heart, using either the words that are in the Siddur in front of you, or more importantly, the words inscribed upon your hearts and souls, after which you may be seated if you are standing.
tevel ve'imru amen. Ose shalom bimroma buya ase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Ose shalom bimroma hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Ose shalom bimroma hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. Last time.
Okay, I see. We're comfortable enough coming in, but we haven't yet gotten comfortable with dancing yet again. Or is that something that all of you are happy we're not doing right now? Yeah, okay. We used to dance during that one. Baby steps. I still just can't get over the fact that there are people here and I'm not staring into a web camera.
And harmony.
In harmony. Yes, Cantor learned I'm not the best with doing harmonies. Harmony, though, is beautiful. The mixture of multiple voices coming together to share their own music, their own voice. We don't all have to be the same. Harmony is beautiful, and harmony is holy. And I think probably the epitome of what our speaker tonight represents. I can't tell you how much of a joy it is to welcome Abby Stein to our congregation this evening. Abby, like me, is from Brooklyn, but I would say we're from very different parts of Brooklyn. Centuries apart. But I won't share some of that stuff. I'll let Abby share that. Just as a brief introduction for those of you who don't know who Abby Stein is, Abby is an American transgender author, activist, blogger, and speaker. She is the first openly transgender woman raised in a Hasidic community and is the direct descendant of Hasidic Judaism's founder, the Baal Shem Tov. Even in a Reform synagogue, you get, ooh. I think he was too. Abby is also the first woman and first openly transgender woman to have been ordained by an Orthodox institution, having received her rabbinical degree in 2011, before coming out as transgender. In 2018, she co-founded Sacred Space, an unbelievably important organization which is a multi-faith project which celebrates women and non-binary people of all faiths and traditions. I know some of you have read her book, Becoming Eve. I know you've already had some starstruck people come up to you earlier. And I know that it's not just the people in this room that are here to listen to you this evening, but we have congregants tuning in from all over, and even my mother's book club group from Brooklyn is tuning in. So you've now gone tri-state. It is an unbelievable honor to be able to welcome you to our congregation. Bavakasha, please teach us some Torah.
For those of you who know nothing about my background, which you should use Google in my book for, but if you do not know nothing, which is totally okay, let me say one thing. I grew up in a place where people love to talk, and I'm not just talking to each other. Sermons take like an hour-long sermon is very normal. So one of the jokes I grew up with, so one time a guest came to a new town, and the local rabbi told him, we would love to have you give a sermon this Shabbat, but it's 3 rules. It has to be about the Parsha. It has to be about this week's Torah portion. It has to be brief, so like don't talk for an hour. And it has to be true, like it has to be an accurate sermon. The person walks up to the podium and says, ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what this week's Parsha is. It is true, it is brief, and it is about the Parsha. It might be loud, I'm not that loud. Oh. It's fine, I'm used to it, I'm from the city, but it's a bit... Okay. Now, I'm not going to be here and tell you that I don't know which Parsha it is, because after you spent as many years as I did in a yeshiva, good luck trying to forget what Parsha it is. Maybe some people succeed, I never did. And for context, in Hasidic communities, the Parsha is used not just to read from the Torah, but it's also the way we identify days. There is Sunday of the Parsha of Korach. Today was Friday of the Parsha of Korach. When I left and I realized that the world as a whole has no way of identifying weeks, I was really confused. Because we only do like dates. I don't know, how do you identify weeks? Anyway, so I do know what Parsha it is, but I will try to speak true, and I will try to speak relatively brief. Even gotta watch here to make sure. Just a minute, sorry. It reminds me, it gives me a feeling of home, you know, New York City. It's beautiful. I don't want to talk too much about my personal story. We're going to talk about that a lot on Sunday, right? Sunday? What time? Remember? 10:30. I believe there's links online. It's going to be a full Zoom event. We're going to show some videos. We're going to do some talking, do some readings from the book. We'll share a lot more about my personal story. I do want to tell, well, 1 or 2 a bit more personal stories. I grew up in a community that likes to pretend that they have the authority on what it means to be an authentic Jew. Frankly, we're talking about the Baal Shem Tov before, my Zaidi, as we would say. The Baal Shem Tov at his time, ironically, was actually considered by many to be an unauthentic or inauthentic, pardon, English is my fourth language, sorry, not my fifth. He was considered to be an unauthentic Jew, and as someone who was making a lot of changes. But today, somehow, the people who argue to be his descendants in terms of theology argue that they know exactly what it means to be Jewish. One of my favorite quotes about authentic Judaism is a quote that I have heard from Reb Zalman Shechter Shalomi. Some of you might have heard of him. I don't know if it was his quote or he was quoting someone, and he would say, the only authentic form of Judaism is a Judaism that recognizes that there is no authentic Judaism. And that is the most authentic Jewish thing. If you study Jewish history, you're going to see that throughout history, we constantly have rabbis, some of them pretty much going and saying, we don't care what you said, I'm going to do something else. Others being a bit nicer about it. But ultimately, in every generation, we understood, we had the knowledge that the authentic way of practicing Judaism is to find our own ways of doing that. Well, after I came out in 2015, after I came out as a trans woman, I couldn't help myself. It is one of the things that happens to you when you become a rabbi, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you just have to look at text and play around with them. Am I wrong? No. So far, every rabbi I know, it's like our favorite pastime, so to speak. I published a collection of source sheets, of sources. At the time it was one source sheet. By now they have multiplied into over 50 available online for anyone who wants. But I published the first source sheet that was looking on gender and Judaism, looking at primary religious texts. To give you some examples, one of the texts in there is a 16th century text, a teaching from Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, known as the Ari, the Lion, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the father of modern Kabbalah. He is pretty much the reason why we sing Lechad Odi, a poem written by one of his followers. The text literally says, and I'm translating from the Aramaic word for word, at times a male will be in a female body and a female will be in a male body. If you don't believe me, come talk to me after this. I will show you exactly where the source is. Just one of many. One of the other texts, and I will share a screenshot of that on Sunday, was a text that I showed to my dad when I came out to him, an 18th century Hasidic text that says that because of the reasons of Gilgal, the study of reincarnation of the souls, we'll tell a story about that in a minute, the soul of a female will sometimes be in a male. Replace the term soul with the Hasidic understanding of what a soul is, who we ultimately are beyond your body and your genitals, dare I say. Who are we? And that is our soul. That is our identity. Anyway, back to the story. I put a lot of these sources together. I taught a class about it at a conference in, I believe it was December 2015 or January 2016. And then I published it online. I shared it on social media. Dare I say, all hell broke loose. I invite you all, if you want and you think you have the power to do that and to sit through that, to check out my social media, and you will see that I do not lack haters. It's one of my, by now, ironically find them entertaining. I've gotten hate for being trans, for being queer, for maybe not being queer enough, for being Jewish, for not being Jewish enough, for being a self-hating Jew, for being a too outspoken Jew. I've gotten it all. Up to that point, the most hate I ever got, though, was for publishing that source sheet. And the people who I got the most hate from are people who argued to represent that authentic Judaism. And in the beginning, it hit me, like, why are you losing it? Like, I literally, and if you look on these source sheets, there's nothing in it. There's absolutely just a collection of sources and translations. Most of the source sheets don't even have any commentary. And these are all sources that these people can't, like, kind of try to throw out the window. Yet the hate response to that was more intense than anything I've ever seen. Took a few up to that point, I have been privileged since to see more hate than that. But it took me a while to start to try to think, what is going on here? Why is someone like me coming and saying that I think Judaism has traditions, Judaism has a place to do exactly what we're doing, to do a Pride Shabbat, to do one of my favorite personal quotes, so I'm very narcissistic right now, I'm quoting myself, but I've been saying it a lot. And one of my favorite things is that tolerance It's very good for lactose and for nuts, not for people. One of the things Judaism is teaching us is to celebrate people. Yet why is that message of doing that within Judaism? And one of the more than one, some of the hateful comments would literally like, leave Judaism alone, like move on, and like, fine, you want to be a woman, okay. For me, it's not I want to be, it's who I am, but whatever. Like, move on. Why do you have to be it? Why does it have to be in a Jewish community? Chances are, and I don't know, but chances are there are some people, given that I shared today on my social media that I will be doing this, and I don't know what time it is. By now, probably not. It's already sunset. But chances are there were some Orthodox people with maybe not so lovely opinions tuned in today, and I am almost certain we'll get a lot of lovely comments tomorrow night. How dare you celebrate who you are, celebrate LGBTQ people in a synagogue? So let me turn to the Parsha for a minute. This week's Torah portion, and I know rabbis love to say that every week, but believe me, it's really, really intense and complicated, even as far as Torah portions go. So let me tell a bit of the story. It's a story of Korach. Korach is a Levite, so these people who are, well, at least the way the rabbis look at it, they are like half priests, or like in between the priests. They have some responsibilities in the temple. They were the people, I guess the cantors, we can say. They were the people singing in the temple. They had many responsibilities. In the biblical genealogical tree, Korach specifically was a first cousin, I believe, or a second cousin, but a very close cousin to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, the prophet Moses. This week, he shows up to Moses and he is like, we have had enough of your leadership. Pretty much. According to some rabbinic interpretations, he was arguing that Moses was the leader, he was the rabbi, so to speak, of that generation. His brother Aaron was the priest. And he was like, why does your family get to keep it all? One of the quotes that he is saying, Ki kol ha'eda kulam kadoshim. Everyone, our entire community are holy people. Why would you get this responsibility? It goes on back and forward with some arguments. The rabbis have a blast with these, adding to these arguments everything from pure blue talit, kind of tzitzit, to stories about someone who has rooms filled with books. Whatever the story goes on this argument. Ultimately, Moses turns to them and tells them, listen to me. Here's what's going to happen. If you die a normal death, then maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have no right to take the leadership for me, the priesthood for my brother. I'm not better than any of you. However, in the way it's described in the Parsha, Moses is telling him, if what's going to happen is that the earth is going to open up its mouth and swallow you and everything that you own and all the people around you alive into the ground, then we will all know that you were wrong and I was right. And as the story continues, that is exactly what happens, with some contradictions. We're not going to go into that. Well, there's also a fire, there's also a plague, but ultimately, he threatens him, he tells him, if you die normally, then, okay, you're right, I'm no one. If the earth opened its mouth and swallows you, and which according to the rabbis, that mouth of the earth, along with the mouth of the donkey, coming up next week, I believe, were both created on Friday afternoon, actually. Anyway. There's a story of also one of my other direct ancestors, and as the Hasidic community loves to marry, rabbinic families love marrying each other. Happens to be, if you're a descendant of one Hasidic Rebbe, you're probably descendant of all of them. There was a Rebbe by the name of Rabbi Moses Teitelbaum. He published one of a well-known Hasidic book by the name of Yismach Moshe. He is the father of the Teitelbaum Hasidic dynasty, which later turned into Satmar, one of the biggest Hasidic sects today. Also happens to be my direct ancestor 3 times, or 4, I lost track, 4, yes. Anyway, There's a story that one day he was holding a grandson of his. And Yismach Moshe, that rabbi, was known as having on his back a very strong birthmark. I have no reason to doubt this specific part of the story. So he told him, here's what I want to tell you. I remember all of my incarnations. Every time my soul has been in this world, I remember who I was. And that is following a Hasidic tradition that every soul comes down multiple times. The first time, I was one of the sheep of Abraham, the patriarch. And as the story goes in the Torah, there's an obligation that every 10th sheep you have to donate to charity. And the way it goes, you make like a small opening. The sheep go through, you count them, every 10th, you take a piece of paint, you mark it, and then that sheep goes to charity. I was one of these, I was the 10th sheep of Abraham, and that's why I have the mark from the time that Abraham marked me. Fine. The second time, I was a community leader in the times of Moshe and Korach. This week's Torah portion, because in addition to the fight between Moses and his cousin who were arguing and fighting over the leadership, there's also teams. And even according to the Torah already, Korach has with him some of the most educated, some of the smartest and best people of the community. So he tells him, I was one of those people. And then he told him the third and fourth time. Doesn't matter for this part. Maybe we'll share it later. So his grandson asks him, okay, Zaidi, so I assume you definitely supported Moshe, right? You supported Moses, because if you read the story both in the Talmud and, well, obviously in the Torah, but also in the Talmud, it comes out that Moshe was right and Korach was evil. So I'm sure you supported Moses. And he's like, nope, actually I was neutral. I didn't support anyone. His grandson is like, what do you mean? And this is, we're talking here to a Rebbe, and for those of you who might know Hasidic rabbis are sacred. They are holy in the minds of their followers. It's like, what do you mean you were neutral? Why didn't you support the prophet Moses, the one the Torah says that there was no one else like him? So his grandfather told him, listen, if you would have known who Korach was, you wouldn't have asked me this question. What he told him, it is something that we find in the cracks of tradition throughout history and in commentary, is this reality that Korach wasn't as evil as you might think by looking at someone who stood up against the biggest prophet we have ever had and tried to fight him. And if you read it, I always, since I was really young, was very sympathetic to him. What is Korach saying? All he's saying is like, everyone is sacred. Why are you so holy? Why do you deserve all the leadership? Why do you deserve all the power? I'm a big fan of that. What is so wrong with him? More importantly, if you remember before, Moses was telling him, listen, Korach, if you die normally, then I was wrong. But if you like getting swallowed while you're alive, then you were right. Then I was right and you were wrong. Hold on for a second. If Korach was right, why is he dying? Moshe walks up to him and tells him, if you die normally, then I was wrong. Why would he die? Well, yes, you could look at it, he will die eventually, but he seems to indicate that you are going to die right now. The question is just how. Let me look on this for a second through the lens of people claiming that they represent one thing, but they don't actually represent that. The Talmud says that Korach was so rich that just to carry the keys to all of his treasures, you needed 300 mules to carry just the keys to his treasures. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably convinced this is a metaphor, but it's still a very strong statement. In Yiddish, we say, when someone is very, very rich, we call them rach v'koirach, as rich as Korach. Now rethink of this story. Someone shows up to the leader of the community. that we all also know, well, at least according to the biblical story, Moses was very humble. Someone who was feeding people who have no access to food otherwise. He was giving them the man. He was giving everyone food. And dare I say, everyone got food equally. And Korach, this millionaire, billionaire, super rich person comes, hey, everyone is holy. Why do you get to do everything? I want it. And we see that also in the Torah, that when the earth opens up and swallows Korach, it also swallows everything that he owned, all his money, all his riches. It's trying to come out a story that Korach was saying one thing. He was claiming that he cares about the people, when he was literally, from what we can tell, at least according to the rabbinic story, the richest person among the Jewish people. And his argument wasn't, hey, someone else should be the leader. It was, why I want it. He was saying he cares about something, but that wasn't really what he cared about. What I have learned from thinking of the hate that so many LGBTQ people get, and specifically the pushback when you try to do exactly this, when we try to say that we are not just LGBTQ people who happen to be Jewish. We are LGBTQ people and allies who want to do a Pride Shabbat. We want to bring our identities together and celebrate that. When we put together sources, and all I'm trying to say is stop for a second and look at your own texts, at your own traditions, and you will start realizing that every person, as the rabbi said before, was created in the image of God. When you start to realize that you can find Jewish texts, and I will share some of that on Sunday as well, that show you that our tradition understood since the beginning of time that gender isn't black and white. And understanding that Judaism had, there's a quote from the Baal Shem Tov brought by his grandson where he says that in every generation, the wise people of that generation need to reinterpret the teachings according to the need of that generation. And someone who doesn't believe that, we were literally talking, he was Reformed, literally, now that I think about it. But he says that someone who doesn't believe that is a heretic. Why are some people so bothered by that? I wish I could have the feeling of walking up to a Pride Shabbat and only talk positive. Only talk about the amazing strides that we have made as a Jewish community. And we have. The reality is that 20 years ago, you still had many Reform rabbis who wouldn't do gay marriages. It took till 2015 for the URJ to formally, or 2015, to formally release a response, to formally say that we are fully welcoming the LGBTQ community. I read an article yesterday of someone looking on the amnesia that America has, and how we all like to talk about social justice, but very often only as something in the past, something that we have overcome. Racism was really bad in the 60s, but we overcame it. Now we have Martin Luther King Day and everything is amazing. Homophobia and transphobia, oh my God, it was really bad during Stonewall in later time. Now we have Pride Month. Every corporation has a nice rainbow logo. We're doing so amazing. Then you go on social media and you look at states, more than half of US states right now have either pending or already passed bills directly targeting LGBTQ people, specifically LGBTQ kids, some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And dare I say that even in our Jewish community, there's sometimes still pushback. But what hate made me realize, and I'm one of these always everything is always glorious people, and I like to look on hate and find the good parts. So what the hate made me realize was that these people who argue that they care about Judaism don't really care about Judaism. I've had conversations with Orthodox rabbis who start telling me, but you can't take hormones, there's that prohibition and that prohibition and that prohibition. I'm like, really? I can sit down with you and show you that there's ways around everything. I always like to say that Orthodox Judaism found ways around carrying outside on Shabbat, which is something that was originally prohibited. They found ways against having to throw out all your chametz all your non-kosher Passover stuff. Two things they seem to be stuck at. They can't find ways to help LGBTQ people, and the other thing is agunot, which are women who their husband refused their gets. That's usually the two things that somehow there's no way around. I was sitting down with them and I'm like, here, I will show you how to deal with that. And suddenly there's no one to talk to. Well, sometimes there are, I do have to say. There are some, I've had some people really positive experiences. But far too often, they become even more strong when you start talking in their own language. The reason why we need Pride Shabbat, sometimes now even more than ever, is to make sure that we scream and we let everyone know, don't you come and argue that the reason why you are transphobic or homophobic is Judaism. That the reason why you can't accept people is because you're, I wouldn't even call that God. They don't deserve to call that God. Your boogeyman in the sky hates LGBTQ people. Because at the end of the day, what I've learned, and maybe it's not always the case, but far too often, people are like Korach. They claim they care about all the people in our community and Jewish continuity and some other, anything they're going to pull at you. But in reality, they care about preserving something that works for them. If we want to talk about arguments that I can have against organized religion, I was talking on the way I was talking with the rabbi about that. If I want to hate, I can hate Judaism for the rest of my life, and I think it will be very justified. But I'm not interested in hating. And specifically when it comes to the LGBTQ community, I will never let anyone tell me that the reason they do not accept us is Judaism. Because frankly, if you want to look at Judaism, you can use Judaism to celebrate who we are. I'm curious, show of hands, how many people in this room had a bar mitzvah that traditionally boys have at age 12 or 13? Okay. How many people in the room had a bat mitzvah that girls traditionally have? How many of you had both? Well, I'm a super Jew. I had a bat mitzvah, and I'm going to show the video of that on Sunday as well. I feel like I'm giving away the whole Sunday talk, but only like teasing enough to get you to come. To me, that is what Judaism has to offer. What Judaism has to offer is a community that hasn't met in person for 15 months, and the first time we're coming together in person, and I know that because I was only told a few weeks ago, so I know this has been a fairly recent development, to come together and say that we want to do this as a Pride Shabbat. We're coming here today not just as people who happen to support LGBTQ people, as people who happen to be Jewish, but as people who are screaming that this is not just okay, this is beautiful. This is creating a world where we know that people are not just welcome, people are not just tolerated, but celebrated. I want to wrap up before I actually I'm going to read something, but before I do that, one of the things I was told as a child is that you have to be very careful when you make blessings. You can't just make a blessing because it came to you. There's like certain laws when you make it. I'm a very strong rebel, and I love to break all the rules. I am feeling like making a shehechiyanu right now. The rabbi agrees. I don't know if you want to do it. Do you want me to do it? I'm just going to go for it. I feel like you would be a lot nicer for it. If you feel it. I did not plan that. It literally came to me right now. Whatever you want to do, which would be amazing. Because I just want to say, this is what I'm feeling right now. We're coming together. It's our first week back. It's coming out of a plague. Well, kind of out. And we're celebrating. We're screaming that this is beautiful. Yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sheheyandu v'kiyamandu v'higiyandu lazman hazeh 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 Sheheyandu v'kiyamandu Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begiano Lasman Hase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begiano Lasman Hase, Shekayano Bekiamando Behigiando Lasman Hase, Shekayano Bekiamando Behigiano Lasman Hase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begiano Lasman Hase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begianos Manase, Shekayano Bekimano Begiano Lasman Hase.
Thank you. Amen. Holy One who made us all, tonight we celebrate the LGBTQ community. Quench our thirst for acceptance of self. Help us to feel your divine presence when others question the righteousness of our lives. Let us come to know that all things are possible in our lives, love and hope, caring and friendship and family. May those of us who are deep within the closet find courage and comfort through you. Bless our community and its leaders. Grant us, O divine, health and prosperity. Keep us strong as we pursue justice and civil rights. Ease the pain of those who are ill, and inspire each of us to perform acts of loving kindness and tzedakah each and every day. Source of life, we praise you and thank you for creating us in your image. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Ein ani libi li, וכשאני לעצמי ממני, ואם לא עכשיו, מתי, אם אין אני ליבי לי, וכשאני לעצמי מעני, ואם לא עכשיו, מתי, בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. אם אין אני ליבי לי, וכשאני לעצמי מעני, ואם לא עכשיו, מתי, ואם לא עכשיו, מתי.
I'm sorry we were talking. Well, Shabbat Shalom once again. You know, for 16 months we were figuring out how to do this differently. And now all of a sudden we're back with people. And I'm thinking, okay, announcements, Olenu, Kaddish, Oneg. Where do we do Oneg? And final benediction. And how do we do that again? So I want to thank everybody for your patience with us as we relearn how to do services. It took so much effort to remember to turn and face the ark for the Amidah that I haven't done in so long. So just a few brief announcements before we conclude. I can't reiterate this enough, how wonderful it is to see you all together. And again, we're asking everybody to stay mastering services. I'm distant enough from all of you, and so is the cantor. But I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to remind everybody to wear a mask when they're out and about in the congregation until every age of our congregation can get vaccinated. Because it's not just about those who are of certain age groups where we want to make sure they're vaccinated because they can have a harder time with the virus, but kids can get it too and they can spread it too. So until everybody can get vaccinated, I want to thank you for your patience with the masks, even though I know you can go to Target and not wear a mask, but we're not Target. A big Yasher Koach and thank you to Abby Stein for the tremendous, not only sermon tonight, but what she's going to do with us over the next 2 days. Torah study tomorrow is on Zoom. The link should be in the email that you all got at 2 o'clock today. And then Sunday, she's joining us again for Keepers of Jewish Excellence. That you need a link to, so go online and register after Shabbos. Go online and register for it, or not, you know, we're Reform. And register so you can get the link. So just a lot of wonderful learning for us to do, and some hard truths that we as a community, not only of Americans, but as Jews too, need to think about. How do we interact with one another, and are we doing everything we ought to be doing to be as inclusive as we can be? So a big thank you to Abby. If you haven't yet read her book, Becoming Eve, I can't encourage you enough to do it. It is just, you get absorbed into it, and it's phenomenal. Let's see. Our next town hall meeting is going to be on Zoom. It's going to be Wednesday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. as we unveil our plans for the high holidays. Ooh. Thanks, Dave. That might be how we clergy feel right now, as we're, you know, we could not have predicted 3 weeks ago that we would be together in person like this. So to try and figure out what we're going to do 3 months from now, 3 months, let's say 3 for my own sanity. Yes, exactly 3. It's going to be quite interesting. So we're going to do our best. It's going to be a plan in progress, but we'll unveil all of that for you at our town hall. So in the past, I would have said we're going to meet in the social hall for Kiddush and Motzi and Oneg. We're not doing that because we can't take off our mask, which will make Kiddush and Motzi interesting. So we're going to stay here for our closing benediction, Kiddush and Motzi, and then schmoozing on the way out, socially distanced, wearing a mask. So we're not going to be going into Lippman Hall for Kiddush and Motzi. We're going to be doing it here until we can kind of move out of this liminal space we're in right now of pandemic, no pandemic, and figuring it all out. And a big thank you as well to Dave Schlossberg tonight for all the beautiful music that he's done. I believe your CD is still available on Amazon and Apple Music and whatnot. It is absolutely beautiful, and I recommend it to everybody. On this Shabbat Eve, as we join together as one congregation to celebrate creation and the joy of life and living, we turn our thoughts to those in our community for whom life has become precarious because of health or hospitalization. O God of healing, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers together with the prayers of those who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen them, the healing powers you place within us all, and guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and their families, and may they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, hu yivarech et hacholim, refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf, hashta'a b'ga'ala v'zman kariv v'nomar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless those in need of healing. May God swiftly send them the complete renewal of body and spirit, as together we say, Amen.
Yisheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue now on page 282 as we rise in either body or spirit for Elenu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד.
Yesh kochavim shoram magia arza. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. With the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. With hearts that ache and are saddened, we name now those whom death has recently taken from us, those whose families are observing the Shloshim. We remember Edward Balden, husband of Gail Baldinger, brother of Marion Baum, brother-in-law of Jack, father of Eric and Julie, and uncle of David and Jessica, grandfather of Cassidy. We remember Aaron Morash, son of Joan Peter and Vincent Morash, brother of Andrea Lynn, brother-in-law to Kevin and uncle of Jacob, Juliet, and Henry. We remember Gordon Friedman, husband of Millie, father of Jamie, Randy, and Dan, father-in-law of Orly, grandfather to Sheer and Geffen, Esther, Rebecca, and Ashley. And we remember Jackie Winder, sister of Jack Silvergate, sister-in-law of Joyce. And on this Shabbat, we also recall those dear ones who died at this season in years past, whose names we record with love in our service booklet this evening. Their names are forever bound to our hearts and are permanently inscribed throughout our building. And if you are here to say Kaddish for a loved one, please say their names as I look around the sanctuary. Zikronam livracha. May all their names and memories only be for a blessing. I invite all the mourners, if able, to rise now for Kadisha Tol, Mourners Kaddish, on page 294. Yitgadal v'yikadash Shmei Rabbah. V'yamad yivrach rote v'yamlich malchute v'chaye chon v'yomechon v'chaye dekol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'yamru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah b'richu Be'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran b'yama v'yimru Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. May the source of peace bestow peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved, as we say, Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. We close our service tonight with the singing of Shalom Aleichem on page 323.
Please rise.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ochem LeShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Malchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yara la la ra ra yara ra 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 yara ra 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 yara ra 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 yara ra 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 yara ra 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 yara 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 ra ra yara ra ra ra
Love wins in the end. Love wins. Man for man, woman for woman, woman for man for woman. All genders, all orientations, all true expressions of heart. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Let this come speedily in our day. A tribute to the many and the diverse gifts from heaven. A tribute to love deep and true, each of us for one another. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Amen.
Vayhi erev, vayhi boker, yom hashishi. Vayichulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam. Vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi melachto asher asa. Vayishbot bayom hashvi mikol melachto asher asa. Vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi. Vayikadesh oto ki bo Shabbat mikol melachto. Asher bara Elohim la'asot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemaaseh bereishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zehicher letziat mitzrayim ki banu bacharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashavat. Amen. L'chaim.
In solidarity with you, we won't drink either. We join together for Motzi, which we'll also look at too. And let's close with Lamakom HaKadosh one last time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechziranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechziranu lamakom HaKadosh Hazeh. We thank you, God, for returning us to this holy place. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechziranu lamakom hakadosh hazeh.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. So
should leave heaven.